The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Glovenden.
Welcome back, folks. It's Wednesday, a day that ends in why water is still wet and the Democrats are still trying to kill Donald John Trump. Just another day. John, can you believe it? It may have been a fake scare today, but my goodness, the temperature rises every single time that an event occurs with Donald Trump these days.
It blows me away. You know, this is the third attempt, really. People say it's the second.
Fourth, actually. Yeah, some people claim. First off, we don't know if it's a real attempt. The news has been all over the place today, conflicting reports. So maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But people are arguing that the emergency landing of his aircraft a few weeks back was an attempted assassination too. And since we have no report, no discussion of that, who knows? I mean, look, these people are. Man, I'll tell you what, Trump is he's like the Teflon Don. I'm telling you, and I don't know what's going on here, but this is reprehensible. I called out Joe Biden today. One of my viewers said, what are you blaming Biden for? Because leaders step forward. Somebody needs to step forward who's an authority in this country and say, hey, guys, we have political differences, but let's tone down the rhetoric here. You do realize that this is insanity. Donald Trump is not a criminal. Donald Trump is not a threat to democracy, despite the fact we've been telling you that for 14 months. So I did blame Biden, and I also blame the incompetent Department of Homeland Security, Department of Injustice, the FBI, the Secret Service. These people are all responsible, and none of their leaders have stepped forward to tell us what's going on here. These people are complicit in what's happening. And, you know, if it wasn't for windage in Butler, Pennsylvania, Donald Trump's head would have been blown off. And now we have a situation in which the acting director of the Secret Service claims that the golf course assassination attempt was a success. No, it wasn't. Who doesn't do a sweep? Who doesn't have roving patrols? Why don't they go to Best Buy and buy some freaking DJI drones and fly them around and have surveillance? I mean, this is beyond the pale, John. I mean, look, I didn't think we'd be talking about this tonight, but here we are. It's just crazy. By the way, folks, John is up in the studio in Nashua, New Hampshire. I'm sitting in central Pennsylvania, one of the most important places on the planet as we try to save the world, and we need Pennsylvania for Donald Trump. And we're missing somebody tonight. Where's he at, John?
He did say he'll be late.
Oh, okay. So he will be with us tonight. Okay. All right. We'll see him coming up shortly. So we'll introduce him when he shows up. But John, I did see lots to talk about here, but let's just go in this real quick. I did see that guy that lives, Kaufman, I think his name is, lives up there in New Hampshire, got a visit by the FBI. Have you seen that video?
No, this is news to me.
Yeah, Jeremy Kaufman, he and his wife are known social media commenters, and they commented on something. And so two FBI agents, purported to be FBI agents, so they're more like guys that work for Al-Qaeda, to be honest. But two FBI agents showed up and wanted to ask him questions. And he did, kind of like a Second Amendment audit. What are your names? Agent so-and-so. Let me see your identification. No, I'm not going to show it to you. Can you turn the camera off? No, I'm not going to turn the camera off. Well, you should turn the camera off. Why? I'm in public. It was great. It was fantastic. But basically, they came there to intimidate him because he said something about Kamala Harris. He didn't threaten her. Right? And this is unbelievable. This is what the FBI is doing. And look, I would have handled it a little bit differently than this guy did. He was also being kind of antagonistic, and when they left, he flipped them off and stuff. But these people have the power of unlimited legal attorneys at the Department of Injustice who can destroy your life and bankrupt you. So I suggest caution when you're dealing with these federal agents who are out of control. And not be disrespectful, rude to them, because they'll take it personally and come after you. But this was pretty crazy, and it was in a privately owned vehicle. We have the license plate, but anyway, this is all over social media. I'm surprised you didn't see this, but it's there in New Hampshire.
No, I missed that, but I did catch Hillary Clinton had made that announcement on, I think, the Rachel Maddow show regarding that anybody who's sharing Russian misinformation should be arrested, either charged civilly or criminally, and go to jail. And I'm thinking, some of us understand that the DNC can actually put out information to look like Russia's putting out misinformation and play these games. And we've seen that was J6, right? We know it was a setup. Nancy Pelosi self said that they had a failure. They should have had National Guard there. They knew it.
She
did it on purpose.
Yeah, no, you're right. Listen, it's the whole thing is just bat crap crazy. I mean, these people are unbelievable. And, for 14, 15 months, the entire crux, the entire thrust of the Democratic presidential campaign was Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Now, I just saw something from Tom Nichols. Now, I don't know if you know who Tom Nichols is, but he taught at the Naval Academy for over a decade. He has never served in uniform, to my knowledge, is nothing but a professional student and then university lecturer. That's what he's done his entire life. 63 years old. Tom Nichols appeared in the recent anti-American Rosenberg conspiracy theory BS documentary on Netflix, which is ruined because of its anti-American bent. It has some great information about the atomic age and the race to nuclear weapons and all the impact, but it spends 5 minutes or 10 minutes of every episode going on about the righteousness of the Ukraine conflict and, the corrupt, state of Ukraine and why, that's like the Second World War comparing to the Nazis. It's first off, that's off the mark. And then they go into so many things, including conspiracy theory that Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were innocent. That is horse manure. That has been conclusively debunked and disproven. I will give them credit. They did have one of the Rosenberg's kids, their youngest son, who's still alive, was in the documentary. And what he said was pretty balanced. It's unfortunate he lost his parents, but it's a shame that they sold us down the river to the Russians and compromised our nuclear weapons program. They were treasonous and they got what they deserved, the death penalty. Now, we can make the argument with the Rosenbergs that they were unfairly targeted or unfairly punished because they were Jewish. There may have been a lot of anti-Semitism played a role there. I don't know. I wasn't alive when they betrayed this nation. But the bottom line is that they were communists, they were known communists, and they were caught passing secrets, which is denied by the left. It's all McCarthyism. No, it's not true. The Venona Project was declassified by the federal government. You can go to the NSA Museum, which is a private institution just outside NSA off of the Baltimore-Washington Parkway at Fort Meade, and you can go in there in what used to be a hotel. It's a museum, and you can see all the information you like about the decoded, declassified Venona Project, which proved conclusively, without a shadow of a doubt, that the Rosenbergs were betrayers of this nation and sold us down the river to the communists. They weren't the only ones. Karl Fuchs, I think, was the German who was betraying us too, largely responsible for it. Made it possible for the Soviets to get the bomb years before they possibly could have done it. Anyway. Yeah, it's these people. These have hated America. Look, the Democratic Party. I just responded to something on Twitter a few minutes ago before we went live. The Democratic Party is the party that brought us the Trail of Tears. The first modern Democratic president was Andrew Jackson when that party was founded. And in an effort to swindle and defraud the Native Americans, the Cherokees, the Seminole, the Choctaw of the southeastern United States, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and so on, they defrauded them of land that was theirs under treaty, and then forced them under the barrel of a gun to march all the way to Oklahoma, in which many people died on the Trail of Tears, hence the name of the Trail of Tears. Also that Jackson could land speculate, become fabulously wealthy with his friends and his Patriots network. Disgraceful, racist action. It's the party of the Trail of Tears. It's the party of secession. It was the Democrats in the South who led the effort to break this country in two to protect the institution of slavery. Under the guise of states' rights. It is the Democrats who implemented the Ku Klux Klan. There were some Republicans, but overwhelming Democrats. It is the Democrats who instituted Jim Crow laws around the country, not just in the Deep South. It is the Democrats who, under Woodrow Wilson, segregated the federal workforce for the first time ever in the 19-teens. After the country was 100 plus years old, he segregated black and white the workforce. It's the Democrats under Franklin Roosevelt who put Japanese Americans into concentration camps throughout the United States and the Western Mountain States and defrauded them their property, their livelihoods, and their respect. It is the Democrats, and I should just go on and on, but I'll stop there. They are the party of hate. They are the party of division. They are the party of dividing people up into tiny little groups and then attacking them. It's the Democrats and the leftist liberal fellow travelers who run all of our institutions of higher learning, particularly in the Ivy League schools, that have rabid anti-Semitic behavior going on, attacks on Jews and attacks on Gentiles to defend them all over in the name of protecting radical Islamic fascists on our campuses. It's disgusting. That's who they are. That's who they want to be. And they claim to be everything they're not, but they are everything that we know they are. and it's time to expose them. And I think I do that every day.
Absolutely, man. I am doing some technical stuff here. I'm getting a message.
Right,
where's the sound? And I'm going, wait, what do you mean? Where's the sound? It's broadcasting.
Yeah.
I think everything's working fine.
Sounds going out. I don't know what's going. I don't know if it's going out on the radio, but it's going out over the internet. I'll tell you that much.
It's broadcasting, man. The needles are hitting. So I'm not sure what she's talking about, but I think she's listening on the webcast.
Probably if you're listening on the web and you can read lips because you can't hear us.
No, it's not even that. It's the wsmn.live is what I put it on at home for. So
well, I was going to say that but if they can't see us, they can't read the lips to reload. But just refresh your page. Anyway, well, hopefully that viewer can find us or listener can find us, however they're doing it. But welcome to everybody this evening. Todd McKinley will be with us shortly. John is in the studio in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I'm Chris Wyatt in Central Pennsylvania. Listen, folks, we had some strange stuff today. Earlier today, it was reported by one American news journalist who gave his name. And then the Daily Mail ran the story, the UK version of the publication, not even the US version, ran the story that explosives were found in an automobile on Long Island near the auditorium where Trump is speaking right now or in a few minutes earlier this morning. That story is picked up within about 8 minutes of that story being reported. I happened to come across it. I looked at the information because the Daily Mail and the journalist from One American News claim that the Nassau County Police Department had confirmed that there were explosives in a vehicle and that a bomb dog K9 unit went off on the scent. And then there was a report by the reporter that the person who had the car ran off into the woods. Because the police purportedly confirmed that to be the case, I did a breaking news story and said, well, if this is true, this is the third attempt and second this week on Donald Trump's life. I don't know the current status of that. I don't know who to believe because we're getting conflicting reports about what happened. But the bottom line is that the atmosphere, John, is just so toxic, so off the charts. It's unbelievable right now. And this could all be calmed down if somebody could find Joe Biden and put a microphone in front of him, hit him up with some amphetamines, and give him a script that says, calm down, behave yourselves, folks. What do you think?
No, I think you're right.
Still working on the technical stuff. Listen,
she's saying it's playing. I hear it on the webcast, so I don't know what she's talking about.
I don't know if you can see the screen, but I mean, I just realized I need to turn my pager off. So I'm going to turn my pager off now.
Oh, geez. Do you really have a pager? Don't tell me you really have one.
I had to turn my pager off now.
Oh my! I tell you what, that was something. I heard that. I'm like going, some of them guys carrying them pagers in the front pocket may not be doing any breeding in the near future.
Yeah, that ought to reduce the number of fighters on the battlefield if your Johnson can't do its function. Did you see today, the second day? Now today, their brick radios, their walkie-talkies blew up.
I heard something on the radio on the newscast about that. I didn't hear that previously.
Oh yeah, more people killed. Recent. No, that happened this morning again. No. So, look, if I was a Hezbollah T operator, I would call him a T operator, so we don't get people angry with us for using the full word. Terror. But the T.
Yes, are you broadcasting on your YouTube?
Always, yeah. No, but if I was, if I worked for Hezbollah, I would not have any electronics anywhere near me. The only thing I would trust at this point is a carrier pigeon or a courier, a human courier.
I want to know their secret. I want to know how they did it. Did they actually put up a front, like a storefront, and they put explosives in these things? Or did they just somehow know how to fire these off, overstress the batteries, and cause the batteries to blow up?
Well, that's the speculation. There's a number of so-called experts who are experts, but they have no proof. And there's no proof the Israelis did it, but it's pretty obvious they're the most likely candidate to have done this. They're the ones that have the issue with Hezbollah. So there's a couple ways it could have been done. They could have infected the software on the devices to cause the battery to overheat by putting it in some mode. But most likely it appears that somewhere in the supply chain from the place where they were manufactured in Hungary, at some point along the way, the consignment of now apparently the brick radios as well as the pagers was intercepted and some sort of small explosive device was put inside. And then that was triggered with a signal over the network. It's wild. I saw today, time-elapsed footage of puffs of smoke coming up from houses all over Beirut where these people who are just, murderers and criminals actually live. Look, I when people die, it's horrible. And the child died. That's unfortunate. Mm-hmm. But look, it's not like these things were sent to the people who work in the ice capades. It's not like they were sent to people working for Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. It's not like this was sent to a kindergarten creche. These were devices procured by a terror organization hell-bent on murdering civilians. And a bunch of them are dead and grievously wounded now. Look, I mean, it's hard to have sympathy and empathy for what happened here. These people brought this on themselves and the other people who were actual victims here.
Well, it was a planned attack because of their previous actions, things that they've done in the past to people for their purpose in life, you know? I mean,
and
they made their purpose nefarious.
And things they're planning in the future. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, no. But I tell you,
I think it was well executed. I think it's amazing tactic.
John, I said this is, and look, I've warned people about this for years, but I said that, you know, the human toll aside, if you just look at this from a technological, or if you look at it from a standpoint of an intelligence or operational standpoint of the execution, the access, the human intelligence involved, the electronic intelligence to find information out. I mean, somebody either said something or somebody intercepted to find out that they were placing orders in the first place several months ago. And then someone embedded themselves somewhere in the supply chain, either to alter the code or to have the information about what channels it was on, what frequency it was on, what network it was running off of, what numbers. That was the most important part, because they're ostensibly probably running off the backbone of the telecommunications network, the cell phone towers, but you need the numbers for the devices. You need a device, you need all the different, and all of that obviously is available. So that's an incredible intelligence victory, and the success of actually doing it. I mean, you want to talk about a frightening prospect. Just think about that, John. If you're in Nashua, and all of a sudden right now, boom, outside, something went off. Down the street, boom, another, boom, another. That's pretty terrifying. I'm sure a lot of people who were innocent people who weren't even near the explosions were like, what the heck is going on? Are we being bombed? You know?
So I think where I'm at right now, if I start seeing cell phones explode, I'm throwing mine.
Well, I said that I have 3 cell phones on my desk. Maybe I need to get rid of them. You know?
Yeah, right.
I certainly got to shut my pager down.
I have a friend in Florida sometimes listen to this program. I haven't seen him in here in a while, but he does electronics, and he goes by a fictitious name on Facebook and other social media sites, wherever he's at. And he says he does this because he says, John, you don't understand how accessible you are on the internet. He says, don't put your personal information out there. Don't put things about you out there. He says it's best that people don't know, because you don't know the bad actors out there and what they're willing to do. And he goes on the dark web, and he says, he shows me this little, like those Raspberry Pis and things like that. He says, now when I go on the dark web, I got my expensive computer, but I use this like a gateway. He says they can actually, if they detect you and they don't like you, they can actually shoot a signal through there and burn up your computer. Yeah. And so he uses that as a gateway. So that's what gets burned up. That little cheap device gets burned up, $50 device, and he's done. But it saves his, thousands of dollars worth of value in this computer.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've been cautioning people, and you all need to listen right now. Skynet is real. It's real. People can sit behind a computer screen, malicious actors, terror organizations, criminal syndicates, and governments, hostile and friendly, can sit behind a computer, and they can do all sorts of. They can shut down the sluices and dams, causing the pressure to backload and causing a dam to collapse. They can open up the valves on a dam and cause flooding. They can shut down a power grid. They can shut down traffic. Think about this. Just behind you, John, I can see a light for pedestrian crossings and a traffic light. Someone can shut those down and cause accidents and do multiple ones at the same time.
Or turn them all green.
Or turn them all green, or turn them, whatever. Exactly. People can open dam gates. They can shut down port operations.
It wasn't long ago, Chris. There was a guy in Florida. He was monitoring the computer systems. The man. So it was a water treatment plant for drinking water, consumable water, and he started noticing the levels of chlorine being introduced into the water and stuff. Things were changing. And he goes, "Wait a minute, nobody's doing this. What's going on?" Some kid in Florida hacked into this water treatment plant and was raising the level of chlorination into the water to dangerous levels. And I think he was just doing it as a prank thing, but he didn't realize he was doing something very dangerous that could cause people to die. If this guy wasn't monitoring it at that very moment and calling the authorities, this kid would have probably killed a whole bunch of people. This is a true story. I'm not making this up.
No, I know it's a true story. Also, the opposite is true. You reduce the level of protection, and then you get listeria, and you get cholera, and you get other things introduced. Can you imagine that? That will kill people. And look, we are overly dependent on technology. And look, I'm not exactly a Luddite. I'm Inspector Gadget, man. I've been doing computers since IBM data punch cards and cassette tapes to load the operating system. I've had every device, pagers, cell phones, tablets, MP3 players, everything under the sun. I used to write code. I was one of the first people to publish HTML sites back in 1995 timeframe. The list goes on and on. I am a techno guy. But I'll tell you what, I'm also weary of it because it's so easily exploited and it's not protected. And our government does nothing to protect citizens. They leave us vulnerable. In fact, they put us at risk. The federal government, the Office of Personnel Management, left the databases unprotected with all the clearance information, all the personal data, all the legitimate and fraudulent allegations against people who have clearances by, disgruntled spouses, hateful neighbors, family members, and then real things where people bounce checks or they got in trouble for this, that, and the other. All that information was exposed and data mined by foreign actors, and they can't even tell us who it was. I know it was the Chinese and probably the Iranians, possibly the Russians, who got in there and got all this information. So now 20 million Americans, current, former military, who have security clearances, are waiting for a nod from Mr. Fuji. Hello, Colonel Wyatt. I understand in 1987 you bounced a check. Yeah, so what of it? Yes, but you're accused of dating a goat in 2015. Let's talk about that, or I'll expose it. No, but seriously, these people don't protect us at all. It's unbelievable. Never mind the fact that they're actively undermining national security by importing criminal alien invaders into places like Springfield and dumping 20,000 criminals. And I don't want to hear Rhino Governor Mike DeWine, John, claim that, oh, no, first off, these are legal. No, they're not. These are criminal alien invaders who illegally invaded our country, violating our hard-earned sovereignty, and then the Biden administration illegally gave them cover. We give them temporary protected status. I think Joe Biden needs temporary protected status as he finds his way to a rest home.
So some of the problems that are going on, there was immigration laws that were passed in like 1996, signed in by Bill Clinton, and a lot of what they're leaning on now were passed back then. Like that. You got 1 year to register as an illegal, so you can come in here illegally, but you got up to a year to file for what's the status I'm looking for here, for asylum, which they're not really for asylum. That's not what asylum is.
Asylum works.
Oh,
that's
I know.
Bogus. That's bogus. Look, I mean, this immigration situation was changed in 1965. I think it was 64, 65. Teddy Kennedy was the driving factor, if I'm not mistaken, behind this thing back then as an early guy in the Senate. And they changed this, and it made it much more accessible to the rest of the world. It was largely limited to European Anglo-Saxon countries for a long time. And admittedly, what was a racist effort to keep the country from being overpopulated by ethnic Chinese and others. And so that was changed to give other countries a fair chance, and that changed things. And by the way, that law was passed by a bunch of old white guys sitting in Congress, not a diverse crowd, not women,
not inherently racist-born people. No,
exactly. We all know that. How would they overcome that? But yeah, so there's a basis for asylum, political asylum, and fear of your life, but it's not what's going on here. You cannot violate the sovereignty of a country. Look, if you are a genuine asylum seeker, you rock up at a border crossing and you say, I'm seeking political asylum. I have a target on my back. I'm an enemy of the state in Venezuela. I'm a journalist. They have targeted me. I need asylum or my life will be forfeit. Then you go in and they enter you under temporary protective status. They give you a hearing for asylum. You go before a judge at some point, usually much later. And then, by the way, you're not allowed to work. You can't work, but there is assistance for people who have asylum. And then you get your hearing. And if the judge determines that it's legitimate, we're not obliged, we can grant asylum. But that's not what's going on here. These people are invading our country who are not asylum seekers. They are economic migrants. And they have no right to come here and lower our wages and destroy cultural environments. Oh, here we go. Oh, he's a xenophobe. He's a racist. Oh, be quiet. Whoever says it. You know what you're talking about. 19 to 20,000 immigrants from one culture, completely alien, to the town of Springfield, Ohio, with a town of just 59 people, is a disaster. Just the volume of additional water usage, of sewage, of stress on the electrical grid, of traffic on the streets, of people doing things just that alone is unwarranted. But the fact that people are coming there with an alien culture and no one asked for them to come there. No one invited them there and dumped into a town is destroying Springfield, Ohio. The issue isn't about people eating cats and dogs. The issue is about the cultural obliteration of America, the values of America. These people didn't come here because they believe in the course of human events. They didn't come here because they believe that everyone is entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They came here to escape grinding poverty in a country that they're responsible for screwing up. That's why they're here. It's just like Californians moving to Texas and Florida. Why are you going there to screw it up? Take your dumb ideas back to California, you commies. And then what are these people coming here? I'm sick of hearing that America has a very high mother mortality rate, infant mortality rate. Yeah, because we're flooded with third world developing country refugees who have no legitimate basis for being here, and they're counted in those statistics. They are not coming here healthy anyway.
Some of what you're getting over here is some of it's crime, things that are going on. I don't know where the Haitians learn to drive, or the fact that where they're getting the cars, or the fact that they don't know how to drive. It makes me wonder if they even got a driver's license. But they're crashing into people within these city limits. They're crashing their cars into other people. They're creating problems, and it's not being controlled or managed. And like you said earlier, Governor DeWine is just blowing it off like it's not a big deal when it is. You got 20,000 people in a city of 58,000 people that already existed. So now you combine that with what? Now it's 78,000 people. It's overwhelming the city. It's overwhelming their economics. It's overwhelming their ability to pay for schooling. How are they gonna school all these kids that are coming here with these people? I mean, so now it's going to overwhelm their educational system that they weren't geared for. They weren't prepared for, and they couldn't get prepared in the last 5 years. They didn't have the means to prepare. You know how it is when they raise taxes. Look around here. Could they afford to raise taxes here in Nashua, New Hampshire? Could people sustain it? If they said, hey, you know what, you're going to have to pay another $1,200 a year. What, that on top of what you've already got to pay for the increase for the utilities because Public Utility Commission done turn the screws on us?
Well, I mean, look, you think you're getting screwed. We're getting screwed here paying for your emissions. We're producing electricity in Pennsylvania to feed the Northeast. And we're part of this bogus communist Reggie concept. So our electricity rates are exorbitant because we're paying for emissions to produce electricity that's being consumed elsewhere. It's ridiculous.
So you're getting the carbon tax over there?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a nonsense game. It doesn't amount to the reduction of the use of energies because people are consuming what they need. And sometimes you see utilities companies can't keep up with the demand, but they're charging taxes is what they're doing. So they're increasing the revenue stream for taxes. So they have more money to work with, but it's at the expense of the working class people. People as it is can't afford to live, but they keep playing these games to increase their tax revenues. And it's costing people their livelihoods. It's costing people ability to raise their children properly, to feed their children properly, to clothe them properly. It's getting ridiculous. People aren't making it anymore. People are struggling out here, and they're still playing their sick little leftist games.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same thing with the green energy scam. And let me give you a story that appeared in the Washington Post today. And I knew this was coming. It's just a matter of time. Washington Post breathlessly runs a fake news headline about the country that now has more EVs than gasoline-powered cars. Now, we're in America. Most people power their vehicles with gasoline, right? Some people use diesel. Not too many people buy Volkswagens anymore after their scam, but a lot of truck drivers know diesel. But the point is that most people, when they think of putting something in their vehicle, they're thinking of gasoline. So the story is intentionally misleading because it's a statement of fact that the percentage of EVs in this country that I'm about to talk about is 26.3%, vice gasoline-powered 26.2%. So, woo, they just surpassed. Now, we're talking about Norway, an incredibly rich country with an astronomically high, there he is, with an astronomically high cost of living. I mean, I couldn't afford to live in Norway. It's off the charts expensive there. And Norway now has more electric vehicles than hybrids or gasoline powered cars. But still the largest segment of motor vehicles for privately owned vehicles in Norway are diesel powered. Also very dirty, burning. So it's very misleading, dishonest. Now, at least in the story, the Washington Post does tell the truth. They put this down and you go in the story. The reason why they've been able to get more electric vehicles than gasoline powered is because the massive state subsidies and tax breaks, which are all subsidized by, wait for it, sales of oil and natural gas from the North Sea. So they're selling oil and natural gas that someone else is burning. First, the extraction of that produces carbon dioxide and waste and pollution energy. So you have to account for that as part of the cost of the electric vehicles. Then you have to account for all the oil and gas that someone else is burning and all that carbon emission, because that was necessary to give tax credits to buy electric vehicles before we even begin to talk about the destruction of natural environments, destroying mountains and water streams and water tables to extract tiny amounts of rare earth elements from tons and tons of soil and lithium to make these batteries, which you can't dispose of. This is a scam of unbelievable portions. And that's the Washington Post runs this story as if, hey, look at Norway. They've got more EVs now. What a brilliant country. They're so wonderful and smart. Yeah, well, if they weren't selling oil and gas and people were burning and producing carbon, they wouldn't have EVs because they wouldn't have the money to subsidize because they can't afford a Tesla. Only rich white people. I mean, yeah, maybe a few rich people like, Hey, by the way, guys, do you have your baby oil tonight? Just Todd's here. I want to make sure he's got his baby oil. We're going to have our freak off tonight, man. We're going to hook Sean P. Diddy Combs at the federal confinement facility in Long Island. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's time for our freak off. Yeah, got that baby oil out. Anyway, welcome, Todd. Good to see you. You made it in tonight.
Yeah, sorry about that. We had our American Legion Department, Tennessee. I won't go into everything, but we had essentially a trial for somebody who was getting kicked out of the Legion. We had to determine whether they were following the procedure or not at the post level. So that's what I was doing. I was basically being a juror for the past hour and a half.
I'm going to guess that they're gone.
Well, the post missed following procedure by 1 day on delivering a letter to the accused. So therefore, we had to kick it back. So the accused, who actually was guilty of doing what he did, got to stay in because procedure wasn't followed properly. So yeah, it's a technicality, sadly.
Hopefully that person learns a lesson and doesn't misbehave in the future. I've had to deal with a lot.
Yeah, I know you have, but they're not going to learn the lesson. This is,
Well, then there'll be another hearing, and this time the letter should be on time.
Learn a lesson, post.
But John, I did that little rant there about the green energy scam. Did you want to comment on that before we go any further? No, Todd's here.
Well, we've seen this before with Norway, didn't we? Oh, they got socialized medicine, but they can offset the cost of the socialized medicine in a similar sort of fashion. In the United States, America should be doing the same thing, but problem is the United States of America is a large country. It's different. It's designed different. It runs different. It's not the same thing. You just can't do these things, Well,
but John,
so what you're describing is they offset their. It's not reduction of carbon emissions. They just offset it onto somebody else, and then made themselves look like they were just brilliant and good, and it's ridiculousness.
And with the healthcare that you're talking about, that's also a scam too. Let me explain from this standpoint. Oh, look at Canada; it's so lovely. The drug prices are capped; they're affordable. Yeah, because we, the Americans, bear the burden of the development of these drugs by these corporations, and the testing of it takes years and costs billions of dollars, and they're allowed to charge market prices. So we pay the true price of what the drug costs, so that it can be subsidized in countries that have price controls. And before the leftists come back and say, yeah, but that's no. They have the reason that these companies still sell it there is so they can do business for other things. So they're forced to sell things at those prices, and that is not a market-based solution, and it's not a solution that works. Soviets are not known for their drugs, although they did develop some phage solutions to some viral infections using phage, but they're not known for the development of penicillin, not known for a host of medicines, life-saving medicines, life-altering medicines, all developed in the West by GlaxoSmithKline, by Access Nobel, by American corporations out the wazoo. This stuff doesn't exist in these places. Then they get the benefit of our costly development and trial of these things, and then they get the benefit from it at fixed prices.
But the Soviets were known for their bread lines, Chris.
That they were. Hey, Todd, I'm glad you made it in tonight. Listen, when John and I went live earlier, I turned my pager off here. I don't know if you can see it. I think I'm going to turn it back on now that you're here, okay?
Be careful. Wait.
Boom! Turn my pager back on. Darn. That was not what my tip. No, I didn't get this. I got just the last consignment of Hezbollah shipments. This wasn't the most recent one.
Right, so the previous one. So you're safe. You're safe.
This one came from Taiwan, not from Hungary.
And you were talking about Norway, and of course the size comparison to Norway. I mean,
4 million people.
Yeah, 4 million people. Most people live in like just a few small areas. Oslo, right, is probably the highest concentration of people in one area, right?
No, that's true. But some of them live in Stavanger, and you got some of them living up north there. But most, you're right, they don't live in Narvik. They're living in Oslo, eating that lutefisk and having that herring and driving their Mercedes around. it's
right. And you got to think about it. I mean, it essentially stretches from what would be compared to the north of Florida, maybe to the lower part of New York right there. And it's very thin. And they don't have this great highway system like the U.S. does. Most people stay local to the cities that they live in. So you can have electric vehicles in cities and things like that. But you talk about a major country like the United States with huge highway systems, where even just to drive to work on an average day, you're talking about sometimes people drive 30 minutes to 40 minutes, maybe an hour. In heavy traffic, EVs here in the United States with the traffic that we have, like John said, is not really feasible. So Norway,
absolutely.
great job.
They have different transportation systems over there. The way things are designed, it's old world designs. Houses and roads and things like that.
As Todd said, it's tiny. I mean, even Norway's a long physical country, but you drive from the heart of Germany to the Atlantic coast, it only takes a number of hours. Listen, I mean, if I had electric,
even if you're going to travel across all of Europe. It's different than it is over here.
No, it's true. But what I was getting at is if I had EV and I went to see my mother in Ohio, it's over 400 miles. I couldn't even make it there in a single charge.
Right. No.
So now if I go to where my mother lived, I stop once to get some gasoline. I don't even need to because my tank gets me over 400 miles, but I usually do to take advantage of the cheaper prices in Ohio because the tax is lower. And that takes 10 minutes to stop. If I have to stop and charge my car, if I can find a charger, it's going to take hours, hours and hours. And so that's just ridiculous. Imagine a trip from here to Seattle over I-90. I mean, how many times am I going to have to stay in a hotel overnight to recharge the battery on my EV? That's insane. It's absolutely insane. It's just people are just lunatics. They don't know what they're talking about. It's crazy.
Absolutely. Well, it is kind of a scam in my book. I mean, like electric vehicles, electric, motorcycles, whatever you want to say, work in smaller areas and cities and things like that. That's fine. But for the greater United States, it's not feasible. It's impractical. It's not something that we have the technology for. Not at present, anyway.
It's not even overly practical for that. And the reason being is because it takes electricity to charge those batteries. Where are you going to get the electricity from? You got states like California talking about, please don't charge your vehicles at the moment because we're having weaknesses in our electrical grid. Things like this are happening. They're overwhelming the infrastructure with it.
Yeah, I'm talking about me personally. It's not feasible to have an electric vehicle unless I lived in a city where I could charge it, and I'm not driving that far. My daily commutes maybe a few minutes, or I use the car on a weekend and maybe go 20, 30 miles and back, and that's about it. It's not feasible for daily transportation on a mass scale. It's just not.
I'm just going to probably drive my Dodge Ram pickup truck with my 5.7 liter Hemi and drop my foot hard into it. That's all I'm telling you. It's just,
all right.
If it does, it does,
And I'll jump behind the wheel of my Toyota 4Runner with its V8, and the 500 horsepower engine, and I'll go. There you go. See, gasoline powered.
As dropping his foot into it and grabbing gears too.
As long as it's unfortunately automatic. I hate that, but it was no option. So
the gears are getting grabbed though.
Yeah, they are, but not by me. I'm not popping any clutch.
There is something about a manual transmission. I'll tell you what. That's what I like about the big diesel, man. I'm driving a big truck. I get to drop my foot in that one. It's big time, man. 18 speed too.
Here's somebody Jake breaking. Oh baby, that's music.
I don't have the loud Jakes. I need to get some straight pipes on that bad boy.
Baby,
I'll tell you what, man. And you love seeing it when you're going through the cities and stuff. They say no Jake brakes. Yeah, hear the song of my people.
Then you hear the guy off on the side. Oh, I love it.
I look at when the Canadians had their trucker rally going across the country and they got to Ottawa, they got in all the trouble. And I said, guys, I mean, they weren't listening to me. I said, you can stay out of trouble. All you have to do is treat it like an army operation. Outside of town, you've got 1/3 of your force, red, green, and amber. 1/3 of your force is resting, recouping, eating, planning, refueling. Then 1/3 is prepping. That could be the refueling there and getting convoy briefs. And the other third of your force is actually driving through the town, not stopping and blocking the roads. But you put half a dozen semis in the middle of Ottawa, and that's going to cause some headaches. Maybe one vehicle ggets through a traffic light, pissing people off, but they're not loitering. They're not blocking the roads, and they're not prohibited from being there. They have to pass an ordinance. That's what they should have done. But they weren't very bright, and then their lives were destroyed by a fascist government under Juicy Trudeau.
Juicy Trudeau was going after them no matter what. They were making a statement. They were making a powerful statement. The government over there did not like. Well, they had people that stood up for him in Parliament and stuff, but for the most part, people like G.C. Trudeau, being the leftist nut job he is, they didn't stand a chance. No matter what they did, they didn't stand a chance.
That's true, and the fact that Canadians didn't stand up for them shows what useless sheep most of the people are.
Here in the United States, them guys, Mike and Brian and them put together that truckers convoy across the United States.
I was
there. Got to Washington, D.C., they were blocking off interstate exits to keep them from getting off the exits.
There. I live streamed for 9 hours from Mike's truck.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, that was, I'll never forget that. And then the cops endanger public safety by illegitimately blocking the access roads into the mall. They just whipped in front of people, almost causing accidents. I was there. I filmed it all. Still on my channel. Unbelievable. That was a long day, by the way.
Those of you listening, this is just another reminder that people like Kamala Harris do not appreciate free speech. They do not appreciate your First Amendment rights. We've seen it. We've bared witness to it right there at the truckers convoy in the United States. We're seeing it all the time. I mean, Hillary Clinton, like we said earlier today, she's out there saying, if you post Russian disinformation, you should be going to jail. I mean, she wanted to be the president of the United States once. What kind of person that wanted to be the president wants to attack their own citizens? That's got to be the most communist fascist statement we've heard in a long time.
Democrats. Hey, listen, here's a scary thought. We're talking about exploding pagers and handheld walkie-talkies. Do either of you use Apple earbuds?
I have not, but I've seen somebody commented on that, what you're alluding to here.
I have in the past. Of course, they don't come with the iPhone anymore, so I don't have any. I use these headphones whenever I travel. So.
Well, I'm just think about that. You've got Apple earbuds in your ears.
Yeah. No, I put that big blue parrot, or I got another one. I can't think of the name of it. It's kind of like a no brand. You get those big Bluetooth headsets. Yeah, it's be pretty damaging.
Think about this for just a second. How much of an effort, how many missiles, how many special operations missions would had to have been conducted to cause this kind of disruption and carnage in Hezbollah, which they achieved simply by cyber warfare. What an incredible success from that standpoint.
We were talking about the loss of life there for a 9-year-old girl, and there is a term they use for that. Don't they call that casualties?
Collateral damage. Yeah.
Collateral damage. There you go.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's unfortunate. It does happen. She wasn't obviously targeted. It's sad. But let's think about this. Think about this. Whenever Israel was attacked in October, right? What happened? They raped girls. They killed young girls and boys and things like that. Which any legitimate force wouldn't have targeted young kids at all. They would have left them alone. They wouldn't have targeted them at all. Plus, you wouldn't target.
But normally you don't target. Yeah, there you go.
You wouldn't target civilians. If you had jumped in, let's say behind enemy lines or paraglided, whatever they did, or entered in via truck. You would have hit military targets only if you were a legitimate force. They are not a legitimate force. They're not a legitimate government. They are terrorists, period. They killed indiscriminately. Hundreds of people or thousands of people, if that. Raped people, took them hostage. Not a legitimate military, not a legitimate government. They are terrorists. They are scum. They should be targeted. They should be killed.
That was not military maneuvers. That was raiding.
That's absolutely what it was. Nothing but terrorist activity. They should be destroyed, in my opinion.
Crimes against humanity is what
Bingo.
This was.
That's all this was.
What I was alluding to earlier when you talk about collateral damage is like, yes, we lost an innocent life, and that's very, very unfortunate.
Absolutely.
But how many lives are saved now because those people are eliminated from the field? They're no longer going to be
This will have a devastating impact on Hezbollah's operational tactical capabilities.
Big time.
They're in complete disarray. At this hour, they're probably communicating by carrier pigeon.
Well, which if those some Alka-Seltzer out there, you took care of that, right? Boom, they're done. They explode.
Look, I would catch all the carrier pigeons and put plague on them.
Right? Yeah.
Rub their feathers down with plague.
but yeah, you have to think now. All their technology that they're reusing, however antiquated, however modern it is, especially the more recent purchases, they have to be suspect. They have to be using putting those at arm's length because they probably can't trust them. I mean,
How would you like to be the logistics guy for Hezbollah Beirut now with the boxes of pagers you're opening up? You have to take them all apart.
either that, you got to hold them in your hand while they call them, right?
He's opening it with a box cutter. He's doing like this.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have enough hands to protect his ears. No, look.
Somehow I'm seeing Ahmed here.
Yeah, another guy behind him's holding his ears like this, and another
yeah, exactly. There you go. I saw one of these leftist lunatic white rich liberals from the UK or somewhere like that bemoaning the fact that, first off, we haven't proven that Israel's responsible. That seems to be the answer.
Sure.
But bemoaning that Israel did this, calling it criminal and this, that, and the other, targeting civilians. They didn't target civilians. They targeted operatives of this organization. If you have a brick radio or a pager issued by Hezbollah, you're not the local librarian.
Yeah,
that's not
the 9-year-old that was killed wasn't carrying a radio talking on it. I'm sorry. She just happened to be in the vicinity. Probably her father or something like that, or a brother, uncle, something was nearby. It went off, sadly, and she was killed as a result. That's sad. But
where is this concern when Saddam Hussein paid martyrs $50,000 for every person who went onto an Israeli commercial bus in town and committed suicide? Right. We had hundreds of Israelis maimed and murdered by suicide bombers on buses. Remember that? That was before we invaded Iraq. Right. People seem to have forgotten that. They said Saddam is not involved in state science. Yes, he was involved in state-sponsored terrorism. $50,000 for every person who blew themselves up. The family would give $50,000. People have forgotten that. People have forgotten that were it not for the Iron Dome, every day we were reporting dozens, if not hundreds, of casualties amongst civilians at hospitals, universities, primary schools, clinics, residential areas. But because of the Iron Dome, the vast majority of those things were intercepted and destroyed by the Israelis over the past several years. It's like Israel out of Gaza. Well, Israel was out of Gaza. They abandoned it in 2005 because it turned it over to the Palestinian Authority. And those idiots promptly voted for Hezbollah. And that's what you get.
Right. But did you see that the Teamsters decided not to endorse any presidential candidate this year?
I did not see that. That is a complete and utter shock. I thought they were going to introduce, because the language, because they invited the Teamster president to speak at the Republican convention. Yeah. Right. And he did. And most of his speech was good. But then at the end, he just needed a little boot up his backside for his shameful conduct at the end, what he said. But I was surprised to hear that now that they've not endorsed anyone. That's shocking. But that's that is a tacit endorsement for Trump, is what that is.
It is. It's one of those things where they know that they can't outright endorse him because of the national level BS. But of course, with the AFL-CIO and others probably that they're affiliated with. But it is an endorsement for Trump, I think, and not an endorsement for Kamala is an endorsement for Trump.
And we're
also kind of like a wink and a nod, huh?
That's the way I take it.
No, it's not a wink and a nod. It's clear. I mean, this is unprecedented. You're not going to endorse the Democratic candidate for president. That speaks volumes. And as Todd said, they can't openly endorse because there's too many radicals in the unions. That's why the unions exist, for the radicals' livelihood. That's why they suck the money out of your pocket.
Yeah, especially the national level. Yeah, especially the national level. It's not the local level guys who are members of the local who work every day, who do the hard tasks, who do the heavy lifting, paying their dues. It's the people at the upper echelons that make the the unions not what they're supposed to be. They don't do what they're supposed to, like they originally set up to do.
They weaken it out. That's like the teachers union. They're always trying to dictate policy for education. It's like, that's not your job. You're not there to dictate policy for education. You're there to protect workers' jobs and their place, and help improve their wage increases and things like that. It's ridiculousnh.
No, absolutely. Yep. It's you see that radical lunatic who's the head of the National Teachers Union or whatever, running around like a out of control seal. She's ridiculous.
National Educators Association, Educators Union,
something like that. Yeah, that woman, I can't think of her name off the top of my head right now, but she is a wackadoodle. She's an absolute wackadoodle.
So is what's her name, Gardner or Weingarten?
That's what I'm talking about. Randy Weingarten.
She's the Federation of Teachers Union or something like that.
Yeah, whatever, something like that. I mean, she's involved in these unions. Look, I mean, I've made my views pretty clear on unions. This isn't Upton Sinclair in the jungle. We don't have 6-year-olds cutting meat in Chicago meat packing factories.
Right.
The time for unions is gone, in my view. Workers have the ability to negotiate on their own. But anyway, that's the view. Yeah, but then, of course, mine is colored by my experience of being in the Teamsters. All they did was steal my money and harass me at work. That's all they did.
You worked in a minute longer, swept a couple of pieces of dirt up. Oh, wait, Chris, you're off duty. You need to, let's go.
Exactly. Yeah. I was loyal to my employer who gave me, and of course, their argument is, well, you have those high wages because of the union. Really? I don't think so.
Yeah, but can I not finish up cleaning up my area of work? Because the next guy coming in doesn't need a dirty workplace to start off his shift.
Yeah, I mean,
there's been upswings to the union. I mean, as far as projecting jobs and things like that, and abuses of employers. I think I've seen upswings to the years, but there's been a lot of abuses too. Unions bankrupt themselves. Then they're looking at other unions to bail them out. You get those sorts of issues. You get abuses among management. Like you alluded to earlier, they get complacent. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
You get corrupt.
But then again, you get these issues. We have outsourcing in the United States of America. And part of the problem is you want to keep your job. You can't pay a guy $30 an hour just to push a broom. He's got no skills to be paying him $30 an hour. I'm just speculating. I don't know what somebody doing janitorial work is paid.
No, but yeah, you can't pay somebody for a job that's not worth what they want you to pay them.
Well, I'll price it, and pretty soon the business owners look at this going, listen, I was in favor for good fair treatment of my employees, but it's gone crazy now. I'll just send my work out to China, outsource it now, and everybody's out of a job now. They're over there working for $17 an hour, wondering how they're going to make their bills.
Yep.
Well, that's part of it, but I mean, it's the outsourcing is a little more complicated than that. We have greedy CEOs that are always trying to improve the bottom line for a fraction of a percentage of profit margin to drive up stock price, because many of them are compensated through stock options. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, look, I'm a capitalist. I am involved in the stock market. Not actively. I mean, I've invested over the years, and I find a good investment. I put money in it. But so that's interest of full disclosure here, so people know where I'm coming from. But I definitely have a problem. I mean, let me give you an example of this. Back in the 1990s, Michael Eisner was leading Disney. Mm-hmm. Disney went on a buying rampage and spree. They wound up buying ABC, Capital Cities, ESPN, all this other stuff. But under Eisner, Disney stock languished for a long time. He was given options at $3.50 by the board of directors when the price of Disney was $34 a share. That is a 10 times profit. It's 1,000% profit if he sold them. Now, I couldn't sell them initially because he had to vest in them over a period of time.
Right.
But Eisner sold those, and he made $1/3 of $1 billion off of his stock options when my shares went nowhere, and they were declaring no dividends for the entire time this clown was in charge of Disney. His job is,
and he was getting praised for it. I remember him getting praised for the job he did.
No, that's because the media praised him, which was nonsense. The brilliant Michael Eisner wasn't brilliant.
Well, when you buy the media,
it was for him.
When you buy the media, they're going to praise you for sure.
Well, right. That's what it is.
When you own ABC News,
right?
By the same
the Orwellian eye.
By the same token, Larry Ellison is a genuine billionaire with Oracle, who built an incredible company that is the leader in the field that they work in and has been for years. And he's fabulously wealthy as a consequence of it. But so are his shareholders.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I met the man out in California years ago. We did an event out there. Just a cool guy. I thought he was just like, man, this guy's a billionaire. Like you would think he would have this major entourage. He just poked his head in the meeting, and they were like, "Who's that?" It's like, "Yeah, that's Larry Ellison." I was like, "Holy cow, that's the guy!" And he was just so kind. Yeah,
and he was also one of the early corporate guys in the tech world that made it cool to wear a beard.
yeah. He pokes his head in and he says, "Hey, sorry to interrupt you guys' meeting, but," and it's like, you can interrupt any meeting you want to in this building. It's your building.
It's your building, dude.
Yeah,
it's your company.
Yeah,
you're not bothering us. We're all here we're riding on your gravy train, man. Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, it's anyway. It's but Todd, you came in and we were talking about is it real? Is it a hoax? Long Island explosives found, not found. But that's not the story. The story here, from my perspective, Todd, and I'd like your take on this, is the dearth of leadership. Where is the president of the United States? Why is the president of the United States not coming out and having a press conference saying, folks, listen, we need to ratchet it down here? First off, I know our campaign for the past year has said Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, but he's a political candidate running for office. He served as president previously. He didn't undermine democracy. It's still here. The country's still here. We need to calm down, respect both candidates, go vote on November 5th for the candidate. But this violence has no place in society. That's what a leader would do.
Yep.
But Joe Biden is not a leader.
No, and they doubled down on it, and of course they're going to go back to the same old rhetoric. They may have paused the last time whenever he was actually shot in the ear, and people were actually killed at that rally in Pennsylvania and Butler. Yeah. They paused for like a couple of days, and then within less than a week, they were right back at the same rhetoric.
No, absolutely. Now, we haven't had a conversation since the latest assassination attempt, right? Because it was on Sunday.
Right.
Okay. The actual one we confirmed at the golf course. So the last time we talked was last week. So the acting Secret Service director called a success, and I call nonsense. We'll talk more in the next hour about this, but I call utter nonsense. This is a success. No one does a perimeter walk. I mean, did you see the imagery of those trees and the bushes? This guy was in a hide position for 12 hours.
Yeah.
And they're going to call that a success because an agent 4 minutes in front of the president, just happened to see a barrel sticking through a fence. Well done from an individual standpoint and firing on the guy. But how did this guy spend 12 hours there? How did no one detect him? By the way, his car was nearby. How did nobody give him a ticket? I don't know any place, especially in Florida, where you can park for 12 hours without, feeding the meter or, it's the whole thing doesn't add up.
Yeah.
But the call of success is just nonsense. This is an abject failure. The Secret Service, Department of Homeland Security, and the Federal Bureau of Incompetence are in disarray. Or
they're not.
Alex Jones conspiracy time. Are they in cahoots to ensure the president is vulnerable so someone can kill him?
They might.
Not claiming that, but at some point you've got to ask that question legitimately.
It wasn't President or Trump's decision to go out on that golf course, and it wasn't a planned event. It wasn't like they had notification that he was going to go out there. So this guy was obviously just staking it out in hopes that Trump would come out there. And
that's all true, John, but it does not obviate the responsibility of the Secret Service. Look, they're like, at least the president wasn't planned. I'm sorry. You hold the president in a secure facility, the building, the golf course, the clubhouse. You secure that. And then you walk the perimeter.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, how hard is it to go to Best Buy and buy some DJI Chinese drones and fly them? It's like right there, $400 a pop. You get 6 of them. You get somebody out there. Where are the dogs? I mean, what are these? The Keystone Cops? It's like I'm watching Laurel and Hardy, but it's not funny, Todd.
No, I can talk more about that in the next hour if we don't mind. But before we hit the break, yesterday I was able to give a certificate to a 100-and-a-half-year-old World War II veteran who served in Burma, helping with the logistics over the hump. Dario Antonucci, 100-and-a-half-year-old veteran. I gave him a certificate down in Knoxville, Tennessee yesterday. It was a highlight of my time in the American Legion. I really appreciated that. Great man. He
served in Burma. He wasn't with the Merrill's Marauders?
No. He was in the Army Air Corps helping with logistics.
It's a shame because I think the last or one of the Merrill's Marauders is passed or recently passed, or they're down to the last one. My grandfather was in Merrill's Marauders, and he was one of the few that were never evacuated for illness or for injury or combat. He wasn't wounded. A 99% casualty rate. He didn't get wounded. All right, folks, we'll see you in the second hour. Stay tuned. Common Sense Conservatives. The news is up next on WSMN.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at wsmn.live.
ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. A second wave of electronic device explosions targeting Hezbollah militants today. At least 20 people killed, many more injured, and this coming a day after several were killed, thousands injured by exploding pagers, which sources say Israel was responsible for. The Federal Reserve cutting interest rates by 0.5% today.
This is a major move, signaling the Fed's made real progress in its fight against inflation. For example, gas prices have come down considerably. It's also a sign the Fed is paying very close attention to the recently cooling jobs market, even though unemployment is still historically low. This was the last Fed decision before the election in just 48 days.
ABC News Chief Economics Correspondent Rebecca Jarvis. This evening, the House voting down Speaker Mike Johnson's proposal to tie federal funding to a state mandate requiring proof of citizenship for voter registration. Johnson facing opposition even from within GOP ranks over spending levels. This is ABC News. The Justice Department has now filed suit against the owners of the ship that caused the deadly Baltimore bridge collapse.
The lawsuit seeks more than $100 million in damages for the cost of rebuilding the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, plus punitive damages. It collapsed in March after a ship owned and operated by Singapore-based companies Grace Ocean Private Limited and Synergy Marine Private Limited hit a support pillar, downing the bridge into the Patapsco River. According to the filing, the owner's conduct was outrageous and reckless, and that the ship itself itself was operating under conditions that were not seaworthy, including problems with its electrical systems. Derek Dennis, ABC News.
Boeing CEO says the company is going to have to start furloughing employees to save money amid a strike. Factory workers went on strike Friday seeking pay raises. Chief Executive Kelly Ortberg says executives, managers, and other employees would be required to take unpaid time off soon. Good news for world travelers. State Department says Americans can now renew their passports online instead of the mail. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Offer not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Honey, the credit card bill came and we're maxed out.
Maxed out cards, rent is due. We just need some extra cash to help us get by.
Maybe we should go to 27cash.com.
With our bad credit,
27cash.com is one of the largest personal loan networks. They can help people with any type of credit get up to $5,000, and cash can hit our bank account as soon as tomorrow.
When you need extra cash, go to 27cash.com. That's 27cash.com. 27cash.com.
Offer not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Bills piling up? Rent due? Need cash help but have bad or no credit? Then you need to go to fastloansai.com, where you can get approved for a loan of up to $10,000 regardless of your credit score. Fastloansai.com is one of the largest lender networks. Their advanced technology can help anyone get up to $10,000. Best part? Money can be in your bank account as fast as the same day. When you need fast cash, go to fastloansai.com. That's fastloansai.com.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago. Servicing Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work or restorative services, each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
The views and opinions of the following.
Chris wasn't ready.
And we're back. Sorry about that, folks. Distracted. Listen to the Trumpster at his rally in New York. So my apologies for that. Yeah, Donald Trump speaking right now, talking about criminal alien invasion of America. I'm sure heads are exploding in liberal households at this hour. Also, it's time for heads to explode over this nonsense. I don't know if you guys saw this today, but the United Nations General Assembly voted 124 votes in favor, 14 against, with a surprising 43 abstentions, with the Palestinian delegation heralding the adoption of sanctions, potential sanctions against Israel. A resolution, the first ever introduced by the Palestinian delegation under new rights that they gained this year, which are illegitimate since it's not a country. They demanded Israel bring an end to, without delay, to its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory. It calls for withdrawal of Israel no later than 12 months from the resolution's adoption. Now, a previous draft had given them 6 months, but here's what I have to say. Israel doesn't occupy Palestinian territory. There's no such thing as a Palestinian state. Didn't exist, not recognized. It was the British mandate for Palestine. And the territory that Israel is currently occupying is Judea, historically part of Israel, and the Gaza Strip and the Golan Heights. The Golan Heights is not part of Palestinian territory. It's part of Syria. The West Bank, Judea, is not part of Palestine. It's part of Jordan, Transjordan, and it was captured as a consequence of the 6-Day War, which was a preemptive strike to stop the Arab nations from attacking Israel as they were poised to do. Gaza belongs to Egypt, not to Palestinians. So done and dusted, case over, illegitimate argument, tired of this nonsense. There is no Palestinian state. They were given a state and control of Judea and the Gaza Bank, and look what they did to it. They turned it to a terror state.
So my question is where's the United Nations enforcement? How were they going to enforce this decision? Because technically, they have no enforcement powers at all. Everything is reliant upon the integrity of every nation that works with the United Nations.
Yes.
Everything is reliant on the United Nations on the U.S. paying its 18% to fund the operation.
Well, that too,
and on the U.S. backing and supporting things politically. Otherwise, nothing happens in the United Nations.
Yeah, so
despite the fact that they treat us horribly.
So when they make their health decisions and things like that, you know, the world out of the WHO, whether we participate or not is our choice. There's nothing to enforce us to participate when they make these mandates or these decisions. We don't have to participate.
There are treaty obligations that we have.
There are,
and we can be sanctioned, but there's no real effect to that. So, I mean, there are certain things that we agree to. The World Health Organization, however, is not a treaty; it's a voluntary prescription to it, and so that's the World Health Organization. But there are things, for instance, we as a state have agreed to abide by the International Court of Justice, where issues are taken between states that have a conflict. So I can give you a couple examples, like of Africa, where these things have played out, and one where it hasn't played out. So first, Nigeria and Cameroon had a historic dispute over the Bakassi Peninsula, which is a French-speaking portion of Nigeria that the Cameroonians want, and that went to the International Court of Justice, and both parties accepted the court's decision. The Chobe River in Botswana has a little tiny island called Sududu Island. And that island, they went to the International Court of Justice between Namibia and Botswana, and the court ruled that it's Botswana's territory, and they accepted that decision. China has a bogus claim to its so-called 9-dash line, which basically claims the entire South China Sea, hundreds, if not thousands of miles from the Chinese shoreline, in violation of international norms, and they claim it as their own. And they've been doing ecological disaster out there, destroying natural reefs, making artificial islands out of it to put air bases and naval bases out there to interdict and interfere with international commerce and threaten their neighbors. That went to the International Court of Justice. They ruled against China, and China said, get stuffed. They're still doing it. So we do agree to some things voluntarily. And if a state has any, the only place you can go to resolve an issue between states is the International Court of Justice. However, at the end of the day, the United Nations has no enforcement mechanism. The United States has Department of Defense and our military that can enforce things. We have sanctions, and because of the international global financial system, we can put a real hurt on countries if they misbehave. But the United Nations has no real power. It's just a coffee shop.
So Leland's asking if UN people tried enforcement. I think he's saying in USA, isn't that treason? I don't think it could be treason unless it's our own soldiers, but they don't have any means of enforcement. Basically, we have UN troops, but UN troops are for peacekeeping missions only. No, they are not meant to take any armed conflict.
There's no such thing as UN troops. That's a misnomer. The United Nations has no troops. The United Nations authorizes.
They use ours.
No. They don't even use ours. We've never submitted our troops to UN authority, excepting in Macedonia.
Clinton tried to in the 90s.
In Macedonia, that was the first place that was tried, and that experiment ended pretty quickly. We never put our troops under United Nations authority. Unless there are advisors or small numbers of peacekeepers, then they go. That's an exception. So like in Liberia, a force of 15,000 had half a dozen Americans there. There were staff officers who played a role. Now, the United Nations has no force. It has no police. It has no military. What it does is the Security Council authorizes a mission, and then they beg countries to provide contingents. And then we pay for it. Yeah. So all these peacekeeping missions, we pay for it. We've paid a ton of money in for peacekeeping missions in Africa.
So what's the thing with the blue helmets? These guys that wear the blue
helmets? These are troops from Jordan, from Bangladesh, from Tunisia, from wherever, who donated and the reason most of these countries do this is because they make a ton of money off of it. Most of these countries don't even give the money to the soldiers. If we have people that go on a UN mission, they get a UN stipend, they actually get that money. The Brits, they get the money. The French, they get the money. But when these countries like Bangladesh and others, and I may be mistaken about them, but when they send peacekeepers or police as part of a police mission, there's money that the UN pays for every soldier that's there. Plus, they pay for repairing of equipment as long as you own the equipment, and it costs you nothing in theory. But no, there's no such thing. There's no permanent force. So every mission is time sensitive. And until Liberia in 2007, since the inception of peacekeeping missions in 1960 in the Congo, the first one ever, the United Nations had never authorized a peacekeeping mission longer than 6 months. Liberia was the first time ever a mission was extended for 12 months. Normally it's 90 days, and they have to go back every 90 days and get a reauthorization. Now the norm has become 6 months. So there is no such thing as UN troops. They have no enforcement mechanism. They have to beg for troops, and then they have to beg for the money from donor nations like the United States and the European Union as a body to donate the money to pay for it. And that's how it works. I mean, there is no such thing. Now, we have a command. We have a UN command, and it's not in the UN, but it's in New York. and it's headed by an American colonel or lieutenant colonel. I forget which. I think it's a colonel, and they're essentially a commander. They're responsible for all the U.S. forces that are going on these missions as observers and that sort of thing. They're normally observers, and typically 9 out of 10 times or more, they're reservists, not active duty, who go do this.
Right. Yeah. United Nations Force and Observers is what it would be called, right?
Something like that.
Something
But
like
yeah,
that, yeah.
But a friend of mine who taught, we were office mates at the War College. He was a commander for the Department of Defense at the UN, and he had command. He had UCMJ authority, Universal Uniform Code of Military Justice, legal authority over them on those missions. So if they misbehave, he could give them sanctions for it. And he was responsible for procuring those people. But 9 out of 10 times, it's a reservist. I mean, I saw so many of these guys from Reserve Marines, Reserve Navy, Reserve Army, and I worked with them. I worked with them in Liberia and other places. And they do a fine job for the most part, but they are not UN troops. But they do go in UN missions. But it's a very small number. I mean, if there's like 100,000 UN troops out there, there might be about 75 U.S. Americans max involved in these missions. So that's no such thing as UN troops, John.
Yeah. Whenever I hear the conspiracy theorists that say UN troops are coming out, it's like there's no such thing, people. That's not that. And that's
so it's a miswording of, but
it's factually incorrect, is what it is.
Yeah,
and it's not understanding how the situation is and how the dynamic. Like he explained a little bit of how it's set up. It's people just don't understand it, and this is what they've heard from conspiracy theorists, and they just run with it, think they know what the hell they're talking about. They do not.
So they're not going to show up on our shores with tanks and bombs?
No,
they don't have any tanks and bombs.
I know that.
No, but it's no different than this clown Nick Turse, who's an anti-American leftist writer who's constantly talking about the American military-industrial complex and talking about American bases in Africa, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I even saw a graphic that was published in an article this week in the New York Times, by a journalist who is an independent journalist who does a pretty good job, but I think their editors stuck the graphic in there, and it shows like dozens, if not hundreds, of U.S. military bases in Africa. We don't have bases in Africa. There's one exception in Djibouti, Camp Lemonnier, which was established by the Bush administration, and we pay rent for it, and a lot of rent, to the government of Djibouti, and we're not alone. The French have a base there, the Japanese have an air base there, the Chinese have a naval base there. Everybody's using Djibouti as a base to be near the Red Sea and be near the Persian Gulf. So that's the only base. Now, we did build a base in Niger that everybody talks about, claims as an American base, 201. It's not. It was built from the Nigerians, and we just maintained it because when we built it at their request, one of the most expensive projects we ever did, $110 million. When we built it, we said, okay, here's the keys. It costs about $10 million to maintain every year. And they're like, we don't have $10 million. Can't you stay? So we stayed, and we were happy to stay and happy to build it because it gave us a base in the Sahel region so we could fly drones and hunt down terrorists. And it worked really well until the government was overthrown by a military junta. And now they told us to get out. So it was never our base. And the proof of the pudding is that we're not there. Do you think that we would surrender a base that we have in Japan or South Korea if someone said get out? I think we'd be hard pressed to do that. We'd have a big political fight first. So we left. We're gone. So we don't have a base. And then we have these rumors and lies. But what they do is they take things and distort them for the public. So, for instance, in Uganda, we have a cooperative security location. I'm sure that, John, you don't know what that is. I don't know if Todd knows. He might know. He might not. Do you know what a cooperative security location is, Todd? I'm not trying to play chump.
I have an idea of what you're talking about, but I don't believe I've ever been to one. So
okay, but I mean, you can imagine if we showed a map with a cooperative security location in Uganda to John or another civilian and told it was a base, they wouldn't know any better, right? Not to pick on John, but all right. So cooperative security location is an agreement that we can use a facility or a location in a time of a mission need. Like, for instance, flying peacekeepers for the African Union, which we do from one place to another, a peacekeeping mission to help out. And the cooperative security location, the cooperative security location at the air base in Entebbe that I was responsible for consisted of a little piece of land with a temporary, tent building,
a cantonment area or something, right?
No, not even cantonment. It's even smaller. It had a tent, oversized tent, not like a GP medium, but one of those commercial.
Right.
If you go to a fair or something like that, like for people selling farm equipment, one of those big tents with a high ceiling, temporary building, and then we had actually like a Connex facility outside with air conditioning in it and such, with electricity, and then we had some space for pallets, and we had backloaders, stuff like that. That cooperative security location belongs to the Uganda Defense Force. They allow us to use it through an agreement, and we used it ad hoc. So, for instance, we would store some things there like MREs and some water would be stored there when a mission had come in. They had extra stuff. They'd store it there in case it was needed for something. And we had a lot of operations going on there. But the real reason we used it when I was there is that it wound up being a place to store resources like rations and ammunition and water and things like that were necessary to conduct the mission against Operation Observant Compass to hunt down Joseph Kony and the Lord's Resistance Army in support of the African Union mission. So that's why we're using it. Then we also wound up using it when there was a non-combat evacuation operation out of Juba, or actually not of Juba, but north of Juba, wound up being Juba, in South Sudan when their country imploded in the civil war in 2013. I was there running, people off aircraft, wounded soldiers and such who were trying to evacuate people. And then they were coming from Bor, which is north of Juba. And then we used it for the actual non-combat evacuation. Bor was an aborted mission. They got shot at and wounded, and they flew back. And then they also used it to fly peacekeepers from Rwanda and stage them there to fly into the Central African Republic for a UN peacekeeping mission. So that's a cooperative security location. Yes, we can use it for U.S. forces, but it's not a base. We don't own it. We leave any moment if the Ugandans tell us to leave or say we can't use it anymore. Yes, we have the keys, but it's a tiny little spot on side an airbase. It's not. We don't have control to access the airbase, so hence it's not our base.
It's like a timeshare, basically, folks, right?
Yeah, it's like a timeshare, except we occupy continuously and
shared facility for mutual benefit.
It's a timeshare that we squat in, and nobody else gets to use it unless
we squat.
And then most of these places aren't even that. Most of these places are what we call an AXA, an acquisition cross servicing agreement, in which we make an agreement with a country that if we provide them with resources, they'll provide it with access, or they'll do compensate us. So, for instance, we might come into a country and land at an airfield to do a mission, and we bring several pallet loads of rations in. We give them to them because they need them for an operation, and then they agree to give us fuel for free in return at the same value. And we use the facility that's their facility. It doesn't belong to us. They just grant us access to use it. I mean, that's not a base, but these people mislead people all the time and lie about it. America has 150 bases in Africa. No, it doesn't. America's operating here. Well, the fact that a special forces team is on temporary assignment deployed to Chad does not equate to a base there. They're on the Chadian base. It's not our base. We don't control access to it. We're not responsible for security of it. This is nonsense. But these people, they mislead civilians into believing things that are factually incorrect. They're just lies. It's like there were no weapons of mass destruction found in Iraq. That's a lie. When the invasion started, they fired dozens of Scud missiles into Kuwait. Yeah. Scud missiles, a weapon of mass destruction, was banned by the United Nations in 1991 after we invaded Iraq. They weren't allowed to have Scud missiles, yet they had dozens of them they fired into Iraq. So they may not have been nuclear weapons they found. It may not have been centrifuges. It may not have been poison gas, but they did find, because they fired the damn things at us. So I mean, this state things factually.
Right.
Anyway.
And the fact is, whether or not you found caches of mustard gas or whatever, he had gas in the past. He had used it on his people, on the Kurds especially. So he had a propensity to use weapons of mass destruction on his own people. He violated so many UN agreements. I don't know how many times Clinton himself actually launched, missile strikes against him. So to go into Iraq in 2003, I think we went under some of the wrong premises. But at the same time, we could have used any number of things to justify us going in there that he had violated over the
in fact, Todd, I was at the National Security Agency. In fact, we did mention all those things. Unfortunately, the Bush administration, because it was sexy and it was convincing, pushed the narrative and allowed the media to run with the narrative that was about weapons of mass destruction. That was just one of the reasons we went in there. The destruction of the environment for the Marsh Arabs, the violation of 17 UN resolutions, the funding of people blowing up buses in Israel. The list was endless of all the justifications for going in. But the one that they latched onto the Bush administration and they let the media run with it is they were going after weapons of mass destruction. And because they felt they needed that, in my view, they felt they needed that to convince the United Nations Security Council and the international community that was necessary. But they didn't. They did. Saddam was not compliant. Look, Saddam's forces on a daily basis illuminated their target acquisition radars and got tone lock on our aircraft flying in the UN directed no-fly zone. Which at the beginning included Turkey and Netherlands and France and Germany, the UK, the US, Canada. All of them were flying that But by the end, it was pretty much the U.S. and I think the UK, the only ones flying the no-fly zone, which were UN missions ordered because they were murdering civilians. And so they couldn't fly in the north where the Kurds were. They couldn't fly in the south where the Marsh Arabs were. So they went in on the ground and they drained reservoirs and lakes to deprive them of their livelihoods, and they went after the Marsh Arabs. Look, I mean, there was plenty of justification to do something about Saddam Hussein. Yep. Whether it warranted 178,000 coalition troops crossing the border is a different argument.
Right.
But the argument that no weapons of mass destruction are found is a disingenuous, dishonest one. I'll discuss fully the full facts of it, and the full facts are they didn't find nuclear weapons, they didn't find the centrifuges, they found the precursors for chemical weapons, but they didn't find chemical weapons. They have been used in the past, but they did have weapons of mass destruction. They were banned from possessing Scuds. All of them were supposed to be dismantled, and they weren't. And they fired the darn things. Anyway. Same with the mobile launchers. They weren't supposed to have those, but they still had them.
Yep, absolutely. And another thing was, you were talking there. I think you explained a lot of it there. But setting up the intel cell within the SecDef's office, I think that was a little suspect in my book. I've watched a few documentaries on that. I don't know if you know anything about that or have an opinion on it, or maybe you can't share it. But I think that was a little outside of the norms.
I can neither confirm nor deny this topic you're discussing. I have no knowledge of it that I can admit to or lie about.
Or lie. You're not
a little way to get around it.
You're not the White House press secretary.
I am not. If you'd like an answer on that, I recommend you talk to Karine Jean-Pierre, America's favorite Black Haitian lesbian. She's my favorite Haitian lesbian. I don't know any others.
No, I don't. Yeah, you're right. But
oh my goodness! But
so you're saying you're not fond of her, but she's still your favorite.
She's the only one, so it's by default.
She's my only known Haitian lesbian. I think she's pretty amazing.
He likes her. He likes her better than all the others, and he hates her just the same. So
she's my top Haitian American lesbian. That's just a fact, folks. I can't deny it. Anyway, no, but look,
that's funny. All right.
But look, facts matter. Yeah. And there's no such thing as my truth. There's truth. There's black and white. There's gray, but there's black and white. It's pretty obvious. I mean, let's go to Tyreek Hill. Let's talk about that. The Miami Dolphins wide receiver who drives in, I don't know, was it a Lamborghini? That thing cost $500,000, whatever it is.
Yeah, he got detained by the police and made a whole thing about it, because of his race.
Yeah, and I saw the body cam footage. They suspended the officer for what? For what? Because some whiny little privileged, rich crybaby cries racism because he broke the law. Make no mistake about it. I saw the footage. I don't need a speed gun to know that guy was speeding in a construction zone.
Yeah. Detained briefly in cuffs, okay, but was let go, played in the game, got his money, no problem. Oh, he's such a victim. Made more money in one game than probably most Americans will make their entire year.
This is a typical disgusting, vile race hustler. He's first off, he's like, I don't want to go there, but implying that because he's a black man, he got stopped. No, dude, you were speeding. Nobody saw whether you're black in that car. I saw the video. Can't tell you're black. No, you got your windows up there tinted.
Not in a Lamborghini. You cannot see in that thing.
Exactly. You sit so low, and you were pulled over because you were reckless, endangering public safety. The police officers were respectful and professional as per their body cam. Now, I'll admit, I'll allow that maybe there isn't all of it. Maybe footage was deleted, the early footage. But from the moment he approached the door in the body cam, which would give me the impression it was the entire footage, unless he'd already been there and was rude and then came back. I don't know. I wasn't there. But from the body cam footage that's there, this man is an arrogant, privileged, self-obsessed race hustler and a disgraceful human being who turned this into a racial incident because of his crime of endangering public safety, because he's privileged and arrogant, and they had the audacity to stop him. That's what this is about. Black arrogance on the part of that man, privileged arrogance on the part of that man who thinks he gets special treatment because of his status. He doesn't. He got pulled over. The police officer came up, asked him politely to lower his window down. He ignored the cop off, so he knocked on the window. Then he got belligerent. Why are you knocking on my window? Because you refused to lower it. And oh, by the way, he's talking on his cell phone when the officer's trying to get his attention.
Right.
Put yourself, as Cam Newton, to his credit, retired NFL star Cam Newton, said, put yourself in the officer's shoes. He doesn't know what's in that car. You got tinted windows. Who knows? You could have an Uzi sitting in the front seat.
Yeah, pointing right at the guy.
And that's not far-fetched. People get pulled over all the time. That happens. I saw the thing in Texas where a trooper was murdered because the guy got out of the passenger side. He had an automatic weapon, and he just lit the cop up before he could respond. When you're pulled over by law enforcement, whether they're belligerent or disrespectful, you isn't germane.
Right.
They're armed. They're agents of the state. You've been pulled over, rightly or wrong. You've been pulled over. Behave yourself. Listen to their commands. Keep your hands clearly visible, typically on your steering wheel or on your dash when they approach. Follow their instructions. If they're abusive, if they assault you, if they disrespected you, this is something you resolve later on when things have calmed down. But they weren't abusive. They weren't disrespectful. He was in that was abusive. He was just, and he put public safety in jeopardy by his actions, which led to the stop. And then he compounded by being belligerent, disrespectful to cops, blowing them off because he's so important while he talks on the phone. He should not have been on the phone by the time the cops approached him. That call should have ended, or he should have left it live, set the phone down in the carrier, or put it on the dash and let the call go. And if the cops come up, say, listen, officers, my phone is still on. I was engaged in a phone call. I didn't have a chance to hang it up. Or if you're recording the officers, protect yourself. Gentlemen, I'm recording this conversation on my phone. Camera's on right now, just so you know that. But this guy is a belligerent clown, and he needs to be exposed. He shouldn't be in the NFL. The NFL should suspend him for his conduct.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was pulled over on Monday. In fact, I was on the phone, but I was using hands-free speakerphone. I was speeding, but the guy came up to the door. I gave him plenty of room on the shoulder. In fact, I went on an exit ramp so he could have extra room. Made it safe for him. Told him what I was doing. Kept my hands visible. Hung up the phone call. He ran my license and at his discretion, because I was, not wanted, not a felon, nothing like that. Not have any incidents driving in the past several years. I can't remember when's the last time. But at his discretion, he entered my license and he let me go. No ticket, nothing like that. But if I had gotten pulled over within, that day or next few days, then obviously there would be no discretion. You have to get a ticket at that point.
Yeah. John, look, what have you got me into, man? I didn't know it was on a program with wanted criminals.
I don't know, but I've already given my past history, so I guess you're just in trouble there now, Chris. You're the odd man out.
Wanted criminal.
Your brother there.
I've been pulled over multiple times and never cited. You know why? Not driving while black, driving while in the military. Because I have out-of-state plates in the state that I reside in, but because of the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act, I'm not required to have license plates in the state where I'm at because I'm not a resident of that state.
That's true.
So in Arizona, I had Iowa plates. Got pulled over for Iowa plates, driving while in the military, trying to hit me with a fine for a crime I didn't commit, presuming I wouldn't come back for the court appearance. Well, guess what? You're wrong.
Always defend yourself. So your brother Todd says you can't have corn on the side of the road. That's not the time to dispute the ticket. He's absolutely right. Best thing is less said the better. Keep your mouth shut. All right.
Yeah.
When the officer approaches,
you have the Fifth Amendment. You don't have to answer any questions.
That is true.
Just don't feed into it.
That will escalate the situation if you're not cooperative with the officer.
So an officer pulls you over. He walks up side of your car. First thing you're commonly going to hear is, "How you doing today, sir?" Now you're setting a pace right there. He has set you up to figure out to gauge your mood. You were setting a pace. If you're going to get ugly with him, guess what you're going to get in return?
You're going to get
you're not getting his best. And furthermore, cops deal with the worst of the worst in society. Okay, they're not dealing with the best of people all the time. So sometimes they have a bad day because they just saw somebody's kid get run over by a car. They have a bad day because they've had to deal with something really, really horrendous that's really struck them emotionally. So when you go mouthing off at the cop, you might actually caught him in a bad mood. You caught him in a bad time. It's best just to ease back, leave the situation alone, cool it off. There's an old book called Verbal Judo, the General Art of Persuasion. The whole book's the premise of the book is the concept about how you can use your words to what's the word? Change the mood of things, right? To
lower the temperature.
Yeah, I'm missing the word I'm looking for, but yeah, to deflect, so that way you're not raising the issues. They give a lot of good examples in this book about how you choose your words, how you choose your attitude can really set the mood and cool somebody else down. Actually, it's kind of like telling a guy one time he's going off at me. And finally, I let him go, and when he was done, I just let him says, "Excuse me, but I didn't really come in here to upset you. That wasn't my goal. I didn't try to. I just simply wanted to ask a question because I'm trying to plan my day. That's all." This was a receiver at a shipping dock. And when I said it that way, he goes, Oh, well, some people come in here, de-escalate. Thank you, Thomas. De-escalate was the word I was looking for. I really do get lost.
Lower the temperature.
Sometimes. Yeah, same thing. But sometimes when you take the right approach to people, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, this guy's not going to feed into my BS today. So, then I get my dock space and get unloaded really quick for some reason. But because I didn't feed into his attitude, you just got to learn how to de-escalate the circumstances. And you're not going to do that with a cop by getting mouthy or being on the phone and being belligerent and carrying on inappropriately. There are people too.
The whole thing that people behaving belligerently just tells me a lot about the personality. I don't make a habit of breaking the laws and don't intentionally ever break any law and go out of my way to comply with law. But every time I've been pulled over, my pucker factor goes up. I'm a bit nervous, even though I haven't done anything wrong. Like, why am I being pulled over? What did I do wrong? So the most recent, last time I was pulled over was obviously the most recent would be the last time. That's kind of redundant, boy. But the last time I was pulled over was in upstate New York. I went up to go to Buffalo to Niagara Falls a few years back when I was still in active duty. Now I had Maryland license plates because I purchased a car there. I had an Ohio driver's license because that's my state of residence, and my insurance company's USA, based in San Antonio, Texas. Now, that's a highly unusual situation that only like a terrorist might have something like that normally. But I mean, you can't normally have a driver's license and a car registered in a different state unless you just moved. You got so many days to change that. But because I was living in Pennsylvania with Maryland plates and an Ohio driver's license with insurance from Texas, when I was pulled over, I got in the habit of, if I'm in the States, producing my driver's license when asked for, but also handing over a military ID, because invariably I go through a 10-minute conversation about what are you doing with Maryland plates? You have an Ohio driver's license or something like that, or Iowa plates or wherever I was at. So he pulled me over outside Pavilion, New York on a secondary road, which I was taking my time driving 55. I was on cruise control. And he pulled me over and I came up. And so he said, I don't know. You must have nice cops, John, because I got license or registration. No, please.
Yeah. Sometimes they do get rude and they're trying to be authoritative.
Fine. And that's what he was being. He's being belligerent. So I wasn't. So I had the license and I had the registration and insurance in my hand. I handed it to him along with my military ID card. He looked at my military ID card and he tossed it back in my lap. He didn't even hand it to me. Right. So that's how this conversation started. So he walked back, obviously checking to see if there's a record on me or outstanding warrant or something like that. He came back and he said, I clocked you at 75. I said, that is impossible. He said, what do you mean it's not possible? I said, I was on cruise control. I just reached 55 miles an hour climbing that hill after leaving the 35 zone halfway up the hill when I crested the hill. And I couldn't have been going faster than 58. And I know that because when I saw your cruiser, I had just tapped on my brakes because the cruise control allowed me to go beyond 55. I'm on a secondary road. So I had tapped on it and the cruise control was off. I have a GPS in the car. If you want to download the data, we can do that. And he said, well, you're getting a ticket.
Okay.
So I got a ticket and looked it up before I took off. And now I'm like, a ticket? What the heck? That's like a $600 fine in New York, and they report it to your state for like 2 points in your license. Not to mention what it'll do with your insurance. And I haven't had an accident in donkey years, and I haven't had a speeding ticket since 1987. And so I drove the 4 hours back up there to go to court. I went and met the prosecutor who was going to prosecute me for this. And I explained to him the situation. And I walked out and I measured the distance to see if it's even physically possible to achieve that speed from yada, yada, yada. Anyway, his radar couldn't possibly have got me because there was a dip in the road. And I was dropping into the dip when he claimed to have. And so the signal would have gone over the top of the car. And he would never have, so it was all bogus. So I drove the 4 hours. I asked for I went there in fatigues. I got up there. After meeting with the young prosecutor, an elected position, he almost became my defense attorney. Mm-hmm. We went into the hearing with the judge, and I explained the circumstances. And the prosecutor said, Your Honor, I met with Mr. Wyatt, Colonel Wyatt, this morning, and he explained the facts of the case. And the state feels that they don't have a case against him.
Yeah, I remember telling the story before. Yeah,
exactly. That's the story before. Sorry,
but
so the case was dismissed.
Yeah.
But now that you brought that up, Chris, something people want to keep in mind is law enforcement officers tend to have notes on the back of their copy of the ticket. So anything you say or your attitude, they will take note on that. So if you do go to
just
court,
be as short and circumspect as possible and be polite. That's all you have to do. Be professional.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, this guy's clearly a guy that thinks he's special because he's rich. That's what it was. And he's going to use his skin color to try to get out of it and make a big deal about it, become famous. And that is disgraceful.
Right,
That is
yeah.
not, that is a shameful human being to do that.
Can we call that racist too? I mean,
It is
when
racist.
people claim you just don't like me because I'm black, isn't that kind of a racist statement?
It is racist. I mean, and what it does is it belittles and undermines those who actually suffer from genuine racism and discrimination.
Yeah.
Because people see it and they'll tune out to it eventually. I mean, look what Colin Kaepernick did to race relations in this country. He virtually destroyed them through his arrogant behavior. A privileged, rich, whiny little turd nearly destroyed this country.
That's sort
and
of
got away with it.
on him. It's sort of
Not
bad.
really.
He could never get back in the NFL after
Doesn't
that.
matter. He made $100 million from Nike.
Well,
Doesn't matter.
I guess he benefited one way or another.
And he's an icon of he's inspiration for a generation of racists and black supremacists. So what does it matter? He's achieved what he wanted. And the irony is that he wasn't like that until he started dating some radical Marxist girlfriend who was a lunatic. The guy is the offspring of a black and white parent who were drug addicts. And so he was up for adoption and adopted by a wealthy family in the upper Midwest who raised him in privilege and affluence and sent him to exclusive schools he never wanted for anything, including love. And then he went off to, an elite college and then got a $53 million contract to play for the San Francisco 49ers. And the only reason anyone knew who Colin Kaepernick is because Jim Harbaugh was the coach and had an incredible defense and they got to the Super Bowl, not because of Kaepernick.
No.
In spite of Kaepernick, who is an average quarterback, who has a losing record as a quarterback and a barely over 50% completion rate. The guy is a loser. He was not even a competent, good quarterback. I can name dozens. Gardner Minshew, who's a disaster, is a better quarterback than Colin Kaepernick ever was. Sorry.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Truth hurts.
Right, and think about this: the average income in America is like, depending on where you live, maybe $70-some thousand, per household.
69,000 is the per capita income roughly in 2023.
Right, all total.
You'd say per household or per person?
Per capita.
Capita. Yeah. I rounded up just a little bit, but think about this: the lowest price for a Lamborghini is like $275,000. That's like for the garbage model, if you will.
Yeah, that's the one with no horsepower.
Yeah, upwards of about 600-some thousand, some of them. And maybe even more. I don't know. But,
I've seen Porsches and stuff going for like 900,000.
But think about that. I mean, how much $275,000 if you just got a junk model, Lamborghini, And this guy thinks he's a victim here. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're driving something that most 99 point however many percentage people in this country may never even see a Lamborghini. If they do one or two in their life, hey, they feel lucky. Let alone drive or sit in one.
Yeah, no, you're right. Folks, I've been remiss in the first hour, and let's not miss it this hour. You're listening to the Common Sense Conservatives right here on WSMN. And as Todd likes to say, it's out on the interweb. You can find it out there on the Facebook. I don't think he says interweb, but he does say the Facebook.
He says interwebs.
He does say interwebs. Okay. Yeah, interwebs,
right.
and it is out there on the Facebook. That's the proper name of what that was. But 1590 on your AM dial up there in the Northeast, and also 95.3 megahertz on your FM dial, putting power out every Wednesday from 7 to 9 p.m. We're here frequently with guests, famous guests. By the way, I got to tell about last week's guest. So I bought the book on Amazon, right?
Okay.
It was listed as a Prime purchase. It was listed as a new product. I got it, and I noticed that the cover after I opened it, it was double sealed in plastic and was well packed in the box, but the cover is kind of crinkled. I'm like, okay, it's not a big deal. I lifted up the book because it's a hardbound book is gone. And I opened it up, and it's got signed by the author dedicating to two people. This is a used book.
Oh, wow.
Sold to me as new.
But hey,
man.
But hey, if you got a signed copy though, maybe just line through them, put your name in there. You're good to go.
Listen, it's the content that counts.
No, I don't want someone else's book. That's like give me your underwear. I'm sorry. I'm kind of a book is a very personal thing.
Did you send it back?
Not yet. I mean, I'm still befuddled that I got it, and I've been a little busy dealing with VFW issues today. I had to go to Liquor Control Board to file something for a hearing. But anyway. Trying to save the place.
I was going to say, I think you can file a complaint with Amazon about the seller on that one, because Amazon uses private sellers. They don't have all these sales. They got outsourced or contracts or
when it says Prime, it should clearly state whether it's coming from Amazon or not. And I didn't see that. So normally you'll see that, but Prime didn't used to be third-party sellers, but now they also qualify for the Prime shipping, which lends credibility to it. Now, I mean, I looked at reviews. Reviews are very positive about this bookseller, but Maybe they didn't know better because it was wrapped in plastic and they acquired it that way. But it's a used book. I mean, I don't want a book dedicated to someone else.
That now because you bought a used book and you probably paid a new price for it. No proceeds goes towards the publisher or the writer of the book. He doesn't get anything now. So
right. So I want my money back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Used book, man. I want somebody's underwear. Come on. What is this? What is this? A dollar store? What's going on here, man?
Right.
This is crazy.
Come on, that book is worth more than $1. I'll guarantee you that.
Yeah. Anyway, look, I'll tell you what. If you're going to send me used books, I'm going to mail you pagers from Hungary. I'm telling you that right now.
Hey, well, careful. You might get caught being accused of threatening.
Yeah, that could be a threat. It looks like the Trump's broadcast is over, or it got stopped. Let me see what the deal is. Which is
40 minutes. It might be over.
8:42. So the fact that he's in New York,
it's still going. He's done, but it's still going. It was just buffering.
Yeah. So the fact that he's doing this in New York, out in Long Island, do you think that they're detecting that New York's either in play or they're trying to get Kamala and her campaign to spend money in places they don't have to?
I think the New York piece is because it gets a lot of media attention, positive or negative. So. And right now, media attention is important.
Right.
So
okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, I've actually been to the island and met somebody who is basically diehard Trump supporter. There are people out there that support.
Oh, there are. That's not the point. But when the race is 53 to 46 and there's no chance of moving the needle, it's a waste of time and effort to go get votes you're going to get already, because it's like California. He hasn't gone to California. Although in polls before, when Joe withdrew, it was 49-49 before Biden withdrew. I mean, California was in play potentially. It's probably not. They claim that he was ahead of New Jersey. I'm finding that hard to believe, given how many people live there. But anyway, so really at this stage, the energy should devote it to Georgia, Iowa, Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and that's it.
Pennsylvania is a big one.
That's it.
So
what is the status in Pennsylvania?
How big is his lead? The status is I have yet to see a Biden-Harris sign anywhere in the state that I've been. I have seen some RFK signs here locally, one or two. Never seen a Biden-Harris sign anywhere.
So Biden,
Harris, Stolen Valor, Waltz, yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
So Renee's right. He was just in Arizona recently. I think he's going to. Is it North Carolina next? I don't.
Well,
recall.
North Carolina is a place that should get some attention because it might be on the bubble. It shouldn't be, but it might be. But I mean, things are so. If you believe the polls at all, things are so tight that he has to focus, because this race. Look, I mean, I keep telling people this all the time. The fake news media, the legacy media, like Kamala Harris's surge ahead to 6-point lead. You know what? Even if that's true, I don't care, because if she's winning by 20 points in California, it doesn't matter. Trump's not going to win those 53 electoral votes or whatever it is in California now. California's gone. New York is gone. Florida and Texas are gone. California and New York for Kamala Harris. That right there is 80 electoral votes, whatever it is, 30 some plus. It's 80, almost 90 electoral votes. That's gone. Texas with its 40 or 38 electoral votes, and Florida with its 24, 20, they're gone for Trump. Take them off the map. It doesn't matter. Don't poll people in those states, because a national poll isn't going to determine this race. It's misleading. This is where the Democrats made a mistake in 2016. They looked at national polls and they said, Hillary Clinton's going to win this thing. She's got a 5-6 point lead going into the election. And Trump won. And then like a gas. Oh, it was Macedonian server farms.
Right. No.
Macedonia. Yeah. Nobody even knows where Macedonia is other than a few geeks like me, Come on, man.
So those listening on the internet, Trump's going to be this Saturday on the 21st, 2 p.m. He's going to be in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Go.
Worth the trip. Make the trip. You'll never regret.
Yeah. If you like sleeping out in the cold all night longer.
Stop it! Listen, I stood out here in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's 1 degree out. Froze my butt off. My feet were numb. Time when I got to the door, I couldn't get my jacket to open up. The zipper was stuck as they're wanting me down.
To do this?
But yeah, no, I'll tell you, you know what? If you're a diehard Trump supporter, you're going to, at 1 degree, you're going to be standing out there for 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
I'm not a diehard Trump supporter, but I'm an enthusiastic Trump voter, and that's where it sits.
There you go. See, you got to get to an event. I'm telling you, it's going to be, it's like history,
I tried, and I stood in line for 3 hours, and I got 6 feet to the door.
We're Americans. We don't try anything.
Shut the door. Well, I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect me to do? Put a hand grenade on the door to get in?
We're doers.
What are you, Home Depot?
You tell them, cops, you say, I'm getting in there. I don't care what it takes.
John now is shilling for Home Depot. We're doers.
Right. Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. Jeez, no, we're Americans. We're doers. We do. We accomplish.
What was I talking about when you got off on a tangent, John?
So, no, but I was going to say, because you were talking about yard signs, and
yard signs.
You don't
see
polls.
I was talking about polls. Yeah,
I know, but you were talking about yard signs, and I was going to comment that we don't see yard signs from the left so much anymore, and the reason why, they target social media. So you got, like, say, this guy Harry Sisson. Maybe you've heard of him on TikTok.
He's such an annoying fraud.
He is, but listen,
he's a deep state operative paid by the Democrats and their interest, and he denies it, and he's been caught red-handed, listed as receiving salary from these clowns to do what he does.
Joe Biden's administration, the White House, actually has an office for this, where they have for internet media outlets for people like Harry Sisson. They feed them information. This is a target for them. This is a focus point. And I think this is what, honestly, I think that Trump is kind of weak on this. He should have done the same thing for the younger generation, for the millennials and Gen Z.
The Trump campaign is doing that. I mean, they flooded Roku, they flooded streaming services.
Not with younger people.
No, not for the most part. But they don't vote, John. I mean,
how do you know?
I do know because we look at historical trends. The only
I'm seeing a trend with millennials and Z generation. They're getting more and more into politics.
These people can't even hold a job. 6 out of 10 employers.
Dude, you're not giving them any credit. These people are
stating
upset.
The facts.
They're living in hopelessness. They have the greatest concerns in the world, and they're the ones being
Who invited a Harris spokesman on this program? Give me a break.
I am not the Harris spokesman in this matter.
I'm not going to let this scare you. You can't bring this nonsense on Common Sense Conservatives. What is in the water in Nashua? Somebody stole John Grosvenor. We've got an imposter in the studio.
I think you're being off insulting there, Mr. Wyatt.
Insulting. Let's just state the facts, and Todd will back me up on this. We hear every election, the youth voter. The only election in modern history where youth have played a significant role was 2008, when they actually did turn up in respectable numbers, but not even close to what other generations. Do you know who votes? Do you know who votes in this country? Old white people. Yeah. Old white people.
That's an old standard.
No, dude, look at results. 2020. That's how Biden won.
70-some%.
I thought they
voters
won because he cheated.
Well, yeah.
Well, that's a whole other story. I mean,
okay. But listen, how old is Caroline Levitt?
Yeah, 70-some% of the voters were old white people, basically people that were 40-some years old and older, right? Yeah. In 2020, something like that. 70-some%.
Commonly speaking, older people vote. But
how
old is Caroline Levitt?
Do you know why? Do you know why those are the people who vote? Because those are the people actually paying taxes and own property in this country, not 18-year-olds, not 20-year-olds. And look, that's not an insult. I was 18. I voted in every election, but I was mostly surrounded by gray-haired people with wrinkles when I went to vote.
And they probably look at you sideways, like, "Who's he voting for?"
They don't care.
There are a lot of young people involved into politics. If you go to Washington D.C. and go any one of the congressional houses, you're going to see 23-year-olds are running the country. I mean,
I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, they do work in high numbers in Washington.
Are you talking about pages? I mean, they're busy having sex with members of Congress.
The raids. Some people are there for
let me jump in on
paid interns, and some people are.
Let me jump in on that. Most of them are people who worked on their campaigns, if you will, but they're paid at such a low level that most people that are our generation, maybe slightly younger, couldn't afford it to work something like that.
Of course,
and essentially that's a lower level job than most people would want to accept anyway.
Because people in Congress like slave labor. That's what you're telling me.
No, it's about these are people that want to glom on to the political scene or government. Yeah. So they do this like interns and like low-level workers, so they get recognized or get seen and put it on their curriculum vitae, so the resume has it on there, so that they become party operatives and or politicians or aides. And that's what it's all about. Yeah. And then those people, 8 out of 10 of them, if they're successful, will spend the rest of their life in government or in political parties.
So I think Renee just got my back here. She said there will be more this election. Mm-hmm. Taylor Swift saw to that. I just hope they don't just vote her lead.
She was involved last time too. I mean,
that's right. She campaigned extensively. Taylor Swift campaigned extensively for Joe Biden in 2020. Extensively. There's no difference here now. I'm not buying the Swiftie nonsense.
You're no geezer,
the only Swiftie I care about is the Swift boating of John Kerry.
Right. Well, rightly so. But
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you are right. A lot of those people, those younger people, and I've seen it, for many years being associated with Washington, living there, and of course going back there on a regular. These are people that go to Washington at a young age, and they'll either leave government, go to a graduate school. They'll come back, they'll get a higher level job. They'll go to a corporate world, make a lot of money. They'll come back to government. They're always falling back on government because that's what they need to actually make it in the real world, because they don't really have any skills of their own. So
exactly.
They use the Rolodex that they gained in Washington, D.C. to parlay that into a high-paying job because those companies want the connections.
Yeah, it's all about access.
Yeah,
that's what it's all about. Yeah, your camera's frozen, but we can still hear you.
There we go.
Todd.
There we go.
There you go. Reset it. Yeah, no, look, John. Okay, so all the joshing, kidding aside, I'm telling you that youthful voters will not turn out in any historic numbers. They won't decide this race in most states. They could decide it in a few swing states. I mean, look, Kennedy dropping out of the race and getting off the ballot, although he's still stuck on the ballot in Michigan, but he's off the ballot in Wisconsin. But Kennedy dropping out and not competing in the battleground states may be the difference to why Trump wins in places like Pennsylvania and Michigan, or not Michigan, Wisconsin, excuse me. But the youth are not going to make that big a difference. There's a lot of noise. But these are people that don't vote. That by and large don't pay. Sure, every vote counts. But anyway, look.
So
I'm telling
according
you,
to Renee, she says yes, but she has a much bigger following. Stats show more young voters have registered.
Who has a bigger following? Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. So, and she says no. No, if they vote. I'm not sure what that means, but the point is, corporations don't market to you and me, Chris. They market to young people because they're looking for a future. They're looking to capture a new customer base.
No, they market to younger generations because they go to their parents to get them to buy things. That's like cereal, for example.
Yes, but they're trying to capture a new market base for the future. So they go to younger generations because you've already decided whether you want their product or not. As an older person, you already decided whether you want it or not. Younger people
call me an older person, or we're going to have a problem.
Look, you're a geezer, okay?
Oh wow! Oh,
I'm not even middle aged. That comes next year.
I'm just saying. Of course, we're about the same age, but I'm still in my prime.
Oh God! Here we go. It's getting deep in the studio, everybody.
Nothing like being delusional.
Hey, John gets to sit down on his job. Come on now. He gets to drive a cool truck around.
Sit down. I work my butt. I don't know what you're talking about.
I know.
I drive that truck down the road, and I pull up there, and they load it up with material, and I take it to the other end, and I pull a lever, and the dump body raises up and dumps it out the back. But that's a lot of work.
Taylor Swift.
You work that 1 hour.
Hey, all that shifting I do.
I know. I'm kidding.
Speaking of shifting, Taylor Swift has lost 2,326 followers today.
Oh no! Wherever will she get them back?
I don't know. She probably doesn't care. She has 95 million.
Yeah, right.
Bots. Yeah.
She has 95 million. But anyway, look, there will be youthful people show up. Then there are some really dedicated youth who follow politics, like I was at my age, at that age. And they will vote, but they are not a significant portion of the vote. Just like Black Americans don't vote in high enough numbers. They do vote, but not in the numbers. And when they do vote in numbers, they do have an impact in states like South Carolina, where they make up almost the majority of the population, and in places like Michigan, where they're a significant voting bloc. But in most places, it doesn't move the needle. Now, Trump eating into Black male votes is having a very bad effect. Oh, by the way, here's one more fact I want to show you. All the polls out there talking right now that she's ahead by 6. There's some of them saying that, but they're not talking about state by state, the battleground states. But nationally, amongst independent likely voters, this was a Rasmussen poll that just came out. 67% of independent voters have a negative view of Kamala Harris. Now, 53% have a negative view of Donald Trump, but 67%, I mean, that number, that's upside down. Right. I mean, that is normally, she's going to, like Biden normally would have had, plus 50% approval and less than 50% disapproval, but 67% of independents. That's who decides this race, not the 20-year-olds, not the 22-year-olds, not Black voters, not white voters. On a national basis, in the battleground states, it will be the independents who make up over 1/3 of the electorate. In some states, they make 40-45% of the electorate in declared independence. The only reason that there are people still in parties like me is because you can't vote in primaries in most states unless you're in a registered political party. So that's why I'm in a political party. But the independents will decide this race in the battleground states. And she's underwater. severely.
That's a valid point, and that's been a valid point for a long time. They cater to the independents for that reason, because those are the votes up for grabs.
Yeah, I mean, look, Republicans are going to vote. I mean, okay, so I ran, you guys know, earlier this year and did not win. 5 candidates in the race. I've been driving around my district, taking different routes to pick up my steamed crabs, to run somewhere else. Then I had to go down to the county, so I passed a lot of the places I was in the district campaigning a few months ago, and I am finding the guy who won the primary signs all over the place on people's private property. None of whom had his sign there when all of us ran. I had my opponent's sign, another opponent had my sign in some of these yards, didn't have a sign, but all of them now have this guy's name in their yard. Why? Because they're Republicans.
Right.
And they're going to vote straight ticket. That's 35% of the vote. You're not going to change it. Doesn't matter whether people like Trump or not. They're going to vote for him because there's Republican. They're going to vote straight ticket, a high percentage of them. And then by the same token, the people who vote Democrat are going to vote 35, 40% are going to vote that way. So that leaves the 35 to 40% in the middle, and that's what you have to fight for. You also have to not piss off your base. That's not smart. But the point is that this race will be one of the battleground states, overwhelmingly, not by suburban soccer moms and all this nonsense keep talking about, but by independent voters.
I think one thing you've overlooked too is there have been a lot of disgruntled Democrats with what went on between Joe Biden and then transitioning to Kamala Harris. A lot of them felt left out in the decision making. Like BLM came out and said, "Hey, we don't like this. We don't want her. We want to choose."
Well, what's going to happen is that some of those voters aren't going to vote. Despite this lie that the Democrats have high enthusiasm, that's nonsense. I actually know some Democrats, and I know some very angry ones who feel that defrauded of their vote. They voted in the primary in Pennsylvania, and it meant nothing. So some of them aren't going to vote, and every one of them doesn't vote. That's 2 votes for Trump. Because one didn't vote, he doesn't have to get that vote. So that's 2 votes essentially for Trump that he's gained as a consequence of that. And also the Kennedy pulling out and actually endorsing Trump. That's going to help him a little bit, because all those votes would have been for Democrats. None would have been for, but some of them are considered voting for Trump because Kennedy said vote for the guy. He's a good guy. So all of that plays a role here. And that
was a win for Trump.
And none of these people who are Democrats who may vote for Trump or independents that were voting, they're not going to tell pollsters they're voting for Trump. They're not going to tell their neighbors they're voting for Trump. They're going to go in the booth. They're going to pull the ballot just like in 2016. And Trump is behind by 5 points in the closing polls, and he wins the race by 2 points. How is it possible? Because a significant portion of the population can't stomach telling people or afraid to tell people, especially when people are trying to assassinate him, that they're going to vote for Trump. But they're going to vote for Trump. So we'll see what happens.
And people know how the left does. They like to target people and attack them.
Well, that's it, folks. That's our conversation. We've got John, our favorite socialist Harris campaign manager down there. Hey. We'll see you next week, folks. Apologies to John. Having a little bit of fun there. Common Sense Conservatives every Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m. Catch us on the interwebs and right here on WSMN. God bless. Be safe, America.